Have you ever been on a cruise ship and suddenly you'll hear something over the loudspeakers that you didn't quite understand? Words like echo, kilo, and delta. It's not that someone is screwing around with the loudspeakers or practicing the phonetic alphabet. These words are quite serious, and in this video I'm going to tell you what some of them are and what they mean and why they don't just use regular words. Let's start off by explaining why the ships use code words instead of saying what is actually happening. It's simply so the passengers don't panic and lets the crew do what they need to do without having to worry about the passengers panicking as well. Let's put it this way, if you heard someone call over the loudspeakers that there's a fire on board, not only would the crew have to rush to put out the fire, which the quicker they do the better, they would also have to contend with the passengers panicking all over the ship thinking that they're going to have to abandon the ship. Instead, they'll use, depending on the cruise line, Team Alpha, Red Party, or something else. Hearing that isn't going to create panic for most passengers, but rather curiosity at most. Before I get into the code words, a bit of a disclaimer. Depending on the cruise line that you're on, they might not use these code words, but rather use something else entirely. Also, one cruise line could use a different code for the same thing as well as a variation of it. For example, Royal Caribbean tend to use the code 3 times. Now with that out of the way, here they are. 3030, maintenance needed to clean up a mess. Alpha, there's a medical emergency on board. On Royal Caribbean, they will call out Alpha, Alpha, Alpha. Alpha team, Alpha team, Alpha team. There is a fire emergency on a Carnival ship. On most other ships, they will use the word Bravo instead. Charlie, there is a bomb threat. While on Royal Caribbean, they will use the word Charlie, Charlie, Charlie for a security threat. Code Blue, there is a medical emergency on board. Code Red, there is an outbreak of illness on board. Delta, on Norwegian Cruise Line, this means there's damage to the ship. Delta, 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 there is a possible biohazard on a Royal Caribbean ship. Echo, the ship is starting to drift. Echo, 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 possible collision with another ship or the shoreline on a Royal Caribbean ship. Kilo, all personnel report to their emergency posts. Omega, Oscar, or Bravo, or Mr. Mob, there is a man overboard. Operation Bright Star, there is a medical emergency that requires urgent assistance. This code will only be called by the medical team. Operation Rising Star, unfortunately someone has died on board. Red Party, there is a fire at sea. Purell, 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 or PVI, someone has vomited. Star Code, there is a medical emergency. Zulu, 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 there is a fight on board. If you're wondering how often these codes get called out, there really isn't an answer to that, as the number of incidents can vary from cruise line to cruise line and cruise ship to cruise ship. So let's hope it's not that often. If you're on a ship, you might not even know that there is an emergency, as not every cruise line or cruise ship will call out the codes publicly. It might not be called over the loudspeaker at all, but through things like walkie-talkies that the crews are holding, or the code might only be called in the area that's needed. So what happens if you hear one of these codes get called out? The first thing is to stay calm. Like I said at the beginning, these codes are not meant to cause alarm for normal passengers, but rather tell the crew that there is an incident on board. The next thing is to stay out of the way of the crew, since they'll be in a hurry to fix the problem. Hopefully after that, the incident will be resolved and nothing else will happen. But if the problem does get worse, there is something that you will need to listen out for, and that's the alarms you were told during your muster drill. If you can't remember what that is, or you just don't know, it's at least 7 short blasts from the ship's horn and then a long one.
For exercise, for exercise, for exercise. The ship's general emergency alarm is about to be sounded for exercise purposes only.
If you hear this, then the emergency has escalated enough that the crew need you to assemble at your muster station. This is why it's important, no matter how many times you've done a cruise, to go to your muster drill, just so you know what needs to be done in an emergency. How prepared are the crew for emergencies while at sea? Simply put, very, very prepared. They have to be. When a ship is out in the ocean, the next closest ship could be hours away. The crew practice at least once a month, and usually when there are less passengers on board, like on port days. And the loudspeakers will warn you that there is a drill with the term for exercise or for practice. This is so that both crew and passengers know that it's only a drill. If you can't remember exactly what happens during a musk drill, have a look at this video here. And as always, thanks for watching.